welcome to On Call Chronicles, the podcast where we dig deep into stuff you should know if you want to become a doctor. I'm your host, Jaden, and today we're talking about a path that a lot of students who want to become a doctor have to go through: med school. If you're in high school or early college and thinking about medicine, you've probably asked yourself, what actually happens in med school and how intense is it? To help answer all of that, I've got someone who's lived it, Dr. Sarah Varghese, an endocrinologist who went through the entire journey. Thanks for being here, Dr. Varghese.
Thanks, Jaden. Thanks for having me over.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. A lot of our listeners are in high school or just starting college. What should they know early on if they want to become a doctor?
Well, they need to know that medical school is tough. It's a lot of hard work, but if you have the passion, you can make it work and be a good doctor.
Okay. Next, what would you recommend high schoolers or people in college do to prepare themselves for med school?
First and foremost, there is no short route to success, so be ready to work hard. After all, you're learning human body, which is very intense and very diverse. So be ready to do that, and for that, be ready to be working hard. There's no short route to success, as I always say. A good opportunity will be shadowing doctors and other physicians to kind of see how their day-to-day life is, and to kind of see yourself in those shoes and see whether you would like to be in those shoes someday, providing that care and comfort to your patients.
So you mentioned shadowing. So I was just wondering, would you recommend I really want to become an endocrinologist as a high schooler or someone in college, so you don't really know everything yet? Would you recommend them only shadowing who they want to be, or would you recommend going for a diverse different types of doctors?
I think in the beginning it's always good to have diverse roles and diverse profession systems to be seen, because it's too soon as a high school student or as a pre-med student to be able to decide I want to be a cardiologist or an endocrinologist. Great if you already have it and have that passion, but it's always good to explore other areas. You never know, you might be attracted to something else.
Okay, so let's say you went through high school, you went through pre-med and college, and you got into a medical school. What does year one look like?
So year one and year two basically are learning about the basic sciences, right? So what goes on in our body, different processes, different systems. So we do that in detail in the first 2 years. Lots to learn.
So could you name any classes you have, anatomy?
Yes. So anatomy is first, where you learn about body structures. Then you learn about physiology, how systems work within our body. There's in biochemistry, how different cycles and metabolism works in our body. And these are all building blocks for making you a good and a smart physician, because we apply all this, be it as a surgeon or be it as an endocrinologist. You apply all this basic sciences knowledge in your everyday life as a doctor.
So how competitive would you say these med schools are?
I think med school should be competitive, because it is pretty hard work and a pretty disciplined life that one has to lead while being in medical school and after medical school. So the fact that it's difficult to get in and the fact that it has a lot of rigorous training is important, because at the end of the day, you are getting into this role as a person who is saving somebody else's life. So you got to know how important it is and how responsible that is. So I do believe medical school is very competitive. Back in India, where I trained, it was very competitive, where we had our exams close to around 20,000, 30,000 students participating in the whole of the state, of which only 400, 500 students would make it to a medical college, because we had just few medical colleges in that state. So again, goes to say that you got to work hard, and from the get-go know that working hard is the only way you can be successful in this profession.
Wow. So obviously there are a lot of tough exams in med school. So what are the exams like? And did you only take exams? I know you said you came from India and you did med school in India. So did you only take exams in India, or did you also do some here in the U.S.?
Well, the part where I come into from a foreign national as a physician you still have to go through the exams here. So yes, I've done 2 rounds of exam, Jaden. If gives you any insight of how much we have to study, but basically during your first year and second year as a school student, you get to take your USMLE Step 1, and between your third and fourth year, you get to take your USMLE Step 2. And then once you are in your residency program, you get to take your USMLE Step 3. So you basically have to take 3 steps before you qualify as a doctor. And yes, I took them as well while I was interviewing for the residency program here.
Okay, so what would you say surprised you most about med school in India that you weren't like expecting?
A lot of hard work. I did not expect this much of labor intense studying, practicals, dissecting human bodies, being comfortable doing that. So it was all came as a surprise, but thankfully, thankfully I found it very interesting and not. I didn't find it as if it was very dirty or anything, but I found it very interesting, and I think that's what fueled my passion more to learn more as the years went by.
Okay, so what are some parts of the journey that people don't really talk about?
I think that part of the journey where you are now open to discussing different things about a human body, got to be comfortable doing that. You got to be respectful doing that, which I don't think many people get it. But then the training is such that you got to start giving respect and understand the human body in a proper way. Lot of hard work, like I said, lot of things and practicals that you have never done before. It could be finding out the type of the bacteria under the microscope, or dissecting a muscle out of a bone and finding out where its origin and its insertion is. So lots of things that you have no idea in your school years, but once you enter into the medical school, you are amazed at how much more is there to learn.
So obviously you learn a lot and have to study a lot. So do you have any time to take a mental health break, or just calm down and
Yes, absolutely. And that is very, very critical. Even the teachers and professors appreciate that and know how important it is for us to step away from exams and from studying. So yes, you carve out your time, do what you like to do. Maybe at the end of a semester when you have taken the exams, you get a few weeks break, catch up with your family, catch up with your friends, watch movies. Between colleges, we would have back in India some festivals where we would spend time in each other's colleges, campuses. So yes, it's not all work, but work is very important. One has to get back to work once you enjoy your break.
Okay, so when do you actually get to work with real patients?
So it's closer towards your third and fourth year, basically, where you are doing clinical rotation. So all the basic sciences that you have learned, the physiology of human body, the biochemistry of the different cycles going on in the human body, you start kind of applying that in clinical sciences. So that's when you actually wear your white coat and have a stethoscope around. I still remember as a third year young student, I felt as if I was already a doctor, only did I not know how many more years were left to reach that spot.
So what was the transition going from like reading it in textbooks, reading certain conditions and stuff, to going and seeing it in real people?
A big aha moment, right? I mean, what all you learned in school books and journals, and you discussed with your teachers, now you're actually seeing it in person. And then actually to go back and read the same again, to kind of incorporate that education, that learning point in your head, is very critical. So yes, I think it was a very aha moment, a very amazing moment, and to be able to diagnose certain things and bring it up to your teacher and say, I think this person has this condition, made you feel very confident even at such a young stage in your career.
So is that when you figure out what type of doctor you want to be, or is that later on, like down the line?
So you kind of get an idea because you do get different rotations, be it surgical rotations, be it OBGYN, be it medicine. But I think it's more towards the end of the fourth year where you kind of get an idea as to what residency program you want to apply to. And you should get an idea by that time, I would say, because you've had 4 years of exposure that you kind of get to know where your expertise can be nurtured.
Okay, so for the students listening right now, maybe they're 15, 18, first year of college, what advice would you give to them?
First, decide that you really want to do this. I think that is very, very important. And the why should not be money. The why should not be fame. The why should be a passion, in my opinion. Because it's only that passion that will drive you through the years and years of training, which you have to give in the future, because again, you are taking a responsibility of taking care of a human being. So it's a very responsible job that one has to be trained in complete. So first of all, find out the why you're doing this. And once you know, my next suggestion would be, again, like I mentioned, shadow doctors, talk to physicians, get to see how much they like their job and what is it that they like about their job. Those things should guide you into making that firm decision as to, do you want to commit your future years into studying and kind of committing your life to that profession.
So what would you tell to people who have a really strong passion for medicine, but like feel like they're not smart enough for it?
Well, I think working hard and working hard on subjects that are not your strong points. So especially in high school, biology, chemistry, math, these are all important subjects that are inclined towards science, and at some point you would be using that as a physician in your medical school days, as a student, and as a physician when you're in a profession. So if you see yourself really struggling in those departments, I would say work harder, get more idea and get more guidance if you need. But that should be one of your criteria in deciding whether you really want to go in that field or not. If you don't enjoy it in the high school days, I doubt you'll enjoy it in your college days.
Okay, so now we're just going to do a quick lightning round before we close.
Sure.
Just like lightning questions. So the first question is, what made you want to be a doctor?
Mine was a very personal reason. I grew up every summer visiting my grandmother, who was a doctor, an OBGYN in those days. And back in India, being a woman and being a doctor was kind of unheard of in those times. So
Wow.
It was a very motivating thing to see how taking care of patients gave my grandmother so much joy. I found that very, very exciting. That led me to want to go pursue that field.
So another question I just have like off the top of my head. What made you want to become an endocrinologist out of all the other types of doctors?
So endocrinologist I like is at least I call it, and it might be my bias, but you use a lot of your brain in terms of all the cycles and the feedback mechanism, and how you differentiate between a hyper and a hypothyroidism. I mean, those things make you really feel like you're doing and making some difference in somebody's life. I'm sure every system doctor will have their own reason to defend themselves, but that's my reason of choosing endocrinology.
So what would you say the most like interesting thing you learned about in med school was?
To me, the most interesting thing that I read was physiology, where I learned about how the lungs work both independently and in connection with the heart, and how the liver, the kidneys, how they all chime in and make this human body work consistently, and how any defect in one of those systems can affect so many systems and put that machine down. So the human body is kind of like a machine with all these systems working.
Yeah.
So that was the most interesting subject in medical school for me.
What would you say like the toughest part was?
To me, the toughest part was trying to get the slide for the microbiology. that is preparing, you have to identify the bacteria, so kind of prepare them in certain ways, which of course you're given proper guidance, but on a practical exam day, to be sure if it's a gram negative or a gram positive, and what exactly that bacteria is causing, that was a very nerve-wracking experience. I'm glad I'm done with that.
What would you say like the most rewarding part was?
Most rewarding part, which I still enjoy, is the happiness and the pleasure that you get when you see your sick patient turning around and feeling better, and the fact that they are so grateful and thankful for that. I feel like that's the prize you get at the end of the day.
So, what is one thing you wish you knew earlier?
I wish I knew, somebody would have given me an idea about medical school up ahead, like I'm giving right now. I wish I had access to that information. Today's days of internet and easy access, I think students and college students should take advantage of these opportunities to kind of almost live the life that you're thinking of living and deciding whether this is something you want to do. Looking back, I don't regret, but I know of colleagues who do. And I feel that, that was something that could have been avoided if these kind of opportunities were available before.
So, what would be your advice to someone in like a couple of sentences, 1 to 2 sentences, about, or to someone thinking about going to med school?
So work hard, be ready to work hard, and be ready to learn. It's a full life of learning. You never finish learning in medical school. Just when you think that you've got all the medicines under your belt is when a new medicine is released, because science is always evolving, and thanks to science that it's always evolving. That's why we could get a vaccine for COVID within a year. So with the merit comes the responsibility for us to be up to date and willing to learn for a long time throughout your career.
Dr. Varghese, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share this with all of us. I think this conversation is really going to be helpful for like anyone who's thinking about a future in medicine. And to everyone listening, if you're dreaming about becoming a doctor, just know it's possible. It is challenging, but it's also meaningful. And there are so many ways to get there. If this episode helped you, share it with a friend. Follow the show. If you have any requests for future episodes, please leave a comment below or email On Call Chronicles #1, like the number 1, @gmail.com, and we will try to incorporate that in our future episodes. And remember, no matter where you are in your journey, you've got time and you've got options. Thanks for tuning in to On Call Chronicles. Catch you next time.